Folks, welcome back. It's Hump Day, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of WhaT's, TrainWreck, WaTching. And unless you've been living on an outer rim desert planet, you know we are all in on Kenobi, the show where the strength has returned, but the weakness still remains. But there is no weakness on this panel, so let's get them in here. Of course, my friend, your friend, our friend, Jake Majka, and we got the resident Wikipedia expert, Mike Parthum, in the building. We have now completed a season of Kenobi in the books, gents. Reactions, thoughts, feelings, emotions, vibes after this season of a lot of our favorite Jedi.
Yeah, I was so sad to see it be done, to be honest. Like, as we were getting to, like, the last 10 minutes, the realization came over. I was like, damn, like, I really enjoyed this, and I don't want this to end. So I think that says it all right there. I would really enjoyed it and really thought this finale did a great job of bringing it all together.
For all that they gave us, and they gave us a lot, especially in this last episode, there's a lot more that they could give. And the vibes from, the cast involved is they want to go for another season, and we'll see if it happens.
And we'll get into the nitty and gritty of that Tatooine sand, see if we can legitimize a Obi-Wan season 2. But of course, before we get into any of that, make sure if you have not seen Obi-Wan Kenobi episode 6, you bail out now, because we will be getting into the spoilers of the episode, and we're getting right into it. We pick up right where we left off. It's not great vibes for Kenobi, as he's both worrying about Luke's well-being with Reva and on his way on a ship being chased on a Star Destroyer by Darth Vader. So for the second time in almost as many, 20 minutes of maybe real-time space-time, he kind of goes and sacrifices himself to kind of take away from it. What did you think of this opening 3 to 5 minute? I wrote here the Last Jedi vibes. You guys are kind of wondering what the hell I was saying about. Just basically a rebel ship being chased by a empirical ship through space. What did you guys think of this first 3 to 5 minutes?
That ship could hold up for if they were talking about the shields and everything. They were taking a beating. Like, Vader's like, we got to up the power on it. Like, that thing was going down. So I was impressed by the ship's stability. It just, Obi-Wan stuck in a rock in a hard place, right? And I think that this episode showed, we've been talking about like his lack of confidence from the beginning of this, and this episode through and through showed how much he has gained since then, and his decision making in these moments, like in such a terrible time for all of them. I'm sure like it wouldn't have been easy. I think 4 episodes ago, I don't know if Obi-Wan would have been able to have been the calming presence among the ship. So I thought the whole situation showed great growth for his character, even though it was a shitty situation all around.
The Last Jedi vibes, I was getting A New Hope vibes here. I mean, how many times is Leia Organa going to get chased by a Star Destroyer on a ship trying to get away? I mean, the poor girl just can't catch a break. But regardless, I was expecting something a little bit different here. I was almost expecting Obi-Wan to somehow go straight to the Star Destroyer, since that's all Vader wanted. And he would just surrender himself and get pulled in and maybe have the duel with Vader on the Star Destroyer itself. But no, he just, plotted a course with a escape ship away to some forbidden planet, whatever that was, and just knew that Vader was going to follow him there and engage in a duel, because Vader has tunnel vision and all he can see is Kenobi right now.
Yes, obviously we have big time tunnel vision. So obviously Princess Leia, Obi-Wan say their goodbyes. Obi-Wan ditches the ship, ditches the rebels. Did you feel a setup here for O'Shea Jackson Jr. with a potential spinoff there and that dialogue and actions?
Yeah, that was my vibes there. Was that, even if it's not his own, like something with that whole crew or whatever, or just the fact that we're going to see them again. But you don't bring Ice Cube Jr. in just to have him. What he had like a total of 10 minutes of screen time on this show or something. Like, feels like there's a lot more for him.
Feels like maybe he could fit somewhere in Andor, unless they've announced him for it or not.
Okay, it could be in the Andor vibe. I get you. So did we get a name of the planet that they went to? The rocky planet, the jagged rocky planet that Vader and Obi-Wan end up on?
Did not catch it.
No.
Okay, because I was trying to look around a little bit, but I didn't see any mention of it. Didn't see anything. Obviously, it's basically just like scary, rocky, jagged planet, and then they meet and it's kind of like a Western face-off in the middle of it. but this is where we kind of see it back. We've talked about it all series, boys. Obi-Wan has gotten there. He started to, get, it's kind of like, Forrest Gump when he starts running or whatever. Like, at first he was just battling a couple stormtroopers in the back alleys. Then he's infiltrating, Fortress Inquisitorius. But this was Obi-Wan full throttle in this battle, boys.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this is all we waited for this whole, once we heard about this show, this was the scene we were waiting for, right? I mean, it was just great to see him, like we said, the confidence and just the strength, as that they've mentioned that word a bunch of different times in their fight and everything. It was a treat. Mike, what did you think seeing Obi-Wan full throttle?
Well, through this whole series, I mean, apparently, using the Force and using a lightsaber isn't just like riding a bike. You don't just get right back on it. But after, a little bit of stretching of his muscles here and there, now he's just, like you said, full throttle Obi-Wan. I mean, we'll get to it later in the fight, but I mean, he's just going with powers that we even seen him try to use before. And it seems like he definitely picked up his game and even got his second wind at some point.
It was
it did. It felt like it was more force power, like you just said. It's more force power I've seen than, I don't know, any other representation of Obi-Wan. I don't know. It was definitely like up there with the amount of that he's displayed, I think, in what we've all seen in the past before. So that was like a big come up for him. Like, obviously, like you said, like it's like a muscle. Like he's had to train it. It's obviously was gone for a while, or he was just, staying away from it, whatever, the combination of both. So yeah, that was dope to see.
Yeah, it kind of felt like terrible, for lack of a better word, when you were seeing like Kylo Ren and Rey like use these powers in the sequel trilogy that were more in line with like the lore that we've talked about in the books and the video games. So it's nice to see our favorites use them, the Obi-Wan, the Lukes. Obviously, when we're seeing, we'll get into it in a minute because obviously don't want to get too far into this battle, but awesome cinematography with the original standoff between him and Vader, even though it didn't last long.
How about those opening lines in that standoff where Obi-Wan repeats his line from Revenge of the Sith, "I will do what I must," and Vader repeats his line to Ahsoka, "If you've seen Star Wars Rebels, then you will die."
Yes, absolutely. Literally a lot of poetry there. As Lucas always says, the intention with Star Wars, it tends to rhyme. And I don't think that's the last time we'll see that in this episode. And speaking of almost thinking to let you see something for the last time, but it's not. Reva is back. So she's obviously wounded. I think if you watch this episode with captions on, I think panting was going on the whole time. Yes. Reva panting was the other. So anyway, so she gets to Tatooine. And it's funny how Tatooine is like kind of like a nice little knit community that like there's this guy who has to sell Lars out, but he also gets to see Lars and like warn him like and all that stuff. So we're getting so this is a very big thing again, because I keep going back to this and it might just be me being annoying about this series, but there's so many opportunities to add to the lore of what we know and everything from Star Wars, or the way that these characters are recognized. Felt like this was just A+ across the board for Lars being worried and wanted to prioritize things and, wanting to move right away. Obviously showing that they weren't clueless. They weren't just like head in the sand, for lack of a better term. And then you got Aunt Beru who says, "Stay strapped or get clapped, baby. Let's go."
I mean, what little we saw of Lars, Uncle Owen, and Aunt Beru in A New Hope was just like, oh, they're these peaceful farmers who didn't know what they really had and were just trying to stay out of it all, and they just got overrun by stormtroopers and just couldn't put up a fight. Here we see them just going full Sarah Connor and just not taking shit from anybody. Even a wannabe Sith Lord. My goodness.
It was a great redemption story, seriously. Just from going from clueless moisture farmers, they had clearly had a run-in and had always been ready for this. Yeah, maybe you grow a little, you're not as on guard 20 years into the future or whatever on a random.
Well, I think they were still on guard by the time of episode 4. It's just, you just throw so many stormtroopers, and when you're in close quarters indoors, it's hard for them to miss then, I guess.
Agreed. In the meantime, I tried to look up this planet name. 3 different reviews I just scanned. They're like, don't think the planet name was ever mentioned. So I guess this is just an evil planet. Anyways, but we got Obi-Wan versus Darth. And because of Obi-Wan's swagger being back, getting his mojo back, Darth has to go to two hands. What'd you think of that? And what'd you think of the eventual build-up to what happened, Micah, in the first part of this skirmish?
The first part. Well, first I was like shocked that we were getting it. There was like 15 minutes into the episode, and you got the shot
like an idiot,
of them
right?
walking to
Because
each other. I was like, oh shit! Like
we're talking last week. Are we gonna get it? Or are we not gonna get it? And then when you realize it's happening 10 minutes in, you're like, how could we have not been getting it?
Yeah, and I think that we were as surprised as Darth Vader was at Obi-Wan's ability to put up a fight, because I mean, it couldn't have been that long ago where their first encounter happened, like time wise, like maybe a week, couple weeks, whatever. We don't know the actual timing, but it couldn't have been that long.
I would think no more than a couple of weeks based on the trade, of course.
So what has really changed with Obi? It's really just a credit to this series and showing his, like, I'll just keep mentioning it, his mental journey, his mental fortitude, and just like building that back up. Because if it's a couple weeks time that he was able to go from that point where we saw him getting literally dragged through fire to the fight that he was able to put up now.
So won't be the last time we give Deborah Chow her flowers on today's episode.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, it was just a joy to see it be even, and see Obi-Wan be able to actually put up a fight. And then like just I don't know if it's just because we know like the history of Vader and what his feelings are kind of in this moment or whatever, but you could just feel like the urgency from both of them in that fight a lot. Maybe it was the swing, maybe it was like the type of lightsaber battle they were having or everything else, but it just felt urgent. It felt like they were both desperate in that moment, and that was like the coolest thing. I think that was different than their other two encounters more than anything else.
I think their first encounter in the series was just Obi-Wan kind of going through the motions, kind of trying to remember what it was like to, use the Force and use the lightsaber. Mm-hmm. And then he finally remembered, do or do not, there is no try.
Seriously. I mean, yeah, and you want to talk about a contrast to these two duels. First time we see these two, freaking Obi-Wan literally runs away like a Pokemon when you're running through the forest. Obi-Wan ran away. Now in this one, they face off, and Obi-Wan's kind of just standing his ground. More, not to continue with these TLJ comparisons, but more like Luke. And that's
on both occasions, he was just trying to be a distraction and trying to keep Vader off his feet the first time. And this time, now he's got him right where he wants him, on a planet which is nowhere near Leia. She's on a ship.
He'll only see me. Exactly. So again, as we keep talking about Star Wars rhyming. So yeah, a lot going on there. So eventually, though, even despite Obi-Wan's enhanced swagger, Darth gets the best of him in a moment. But first, what do we have the line? We had the line. So Obi-Wan had a comeback, but then Darth goes, "Your strength has returned, but your weakness remains." New classic Vader line. I mean, that's got to be top 5.
That was baller. That was baller.
Then he absolutely just smacks the ground. Obi-Wan
just
collapsed.
raining rocks, just like it's just so aggressive. But I guess it was necessary.
First, what does he do? What does he do, Zach? He remembers his lesson from before. Well, what do we got here? Yes.
High ground.
Obi-Wan,
did you guys mark at this moment? I thought he was gonna say something. I thought he was gonna be like, "It's over, Obi-Wan. I have the high ground."
I didn't even think about it until now. That's amazing. He's like, "I'm gonna make this ground high."
Yeah, I thought we might hear, "Obi-Wan, you've taught me well."
That would be absolute money. Yeah. So I mean, this fight just had a little bit of everything. Which was great. And yeah, like a little bit easier with the finale and the storytelling, because you had Reva on Tatooine with the moisture farmers, and you had Obi-Wan versus Darth as that ship tried to make its getaway.
How about that burial? I mean, Vader basically buried Obi-Wan like he was Zack Ryder or something. And
a little bit anticlimactic. All
I didn't know how he's going to get out of that little wrestling reference for you guys out there. But I mean, when he's under there, just trying to use the Force to keep everything off of him, and all the memories are churning through his head. That was actually the moment I thought we were going to get some Qui-Gon, speaking to him.
I think that would have been better, honestly.
Same.
Yeah,
all things considered.
But then he remembers, I'm doing this for them. I'm doing this for the kids. I gotta, get my second win or something and just go all badass with the Force.
Of course. I mean, Star Wars always is about, good versus evil, those values and things like that. So this is about, what you're doing for what's important.
Yeah.
It really adds to the story because and we'll get to the end of the episode where this becomes a little bit more clear, but, he emerges in episode 4 based on what you know from the movies and the Clone Wars. Kind of feel like his life has just spiraled completely out of control for the last 45 years and he's been looking for purpose and everything. See, that wasn't always the case. Like, yeah, he was a little down on his luck, but he's still like adventurizing. He's still forming relationships. He's still meeting people, things like that. But hey, okay. Oh, so we have the Vader get the high ground here. And then what did you think? So obviously Reva storms the farm.
The farm.
They got alarms. They got
homestead.
tracking.
There you go.
Yeah.
The homestead. What'd you think? What'd you think of their security system with the sensors and everything?
Yeah, that was lit. I was gonna bring that up earlier. It's like they got like a ring doorbell on there and everything. They're set up.
Well, I mean, some virtual wire trip sensors and a couple of sawed-off shotguns or whatever the heck those were. But
literally the equivalent of like space muskets was what I thought they had.
I mean, Reva could have easily, so many Jedi just reflected one of those shots right back at them. Maybe she was just solely focused on Luke, and I mean,
her heart was never into it though. That was one of the things I noticed is like you can tell and as we get closer to it, she just looked like she was there because it was what she was supposed to be doing, but the whole time it just didn't look like she was as I was talking about the urgency before. She was not showing the urgency. She was lacking urgency in this.
Yeah,
sense.
like what was her end game at that moment? Like
she wanted to
kill Luke and
get back
become
at
Vader.
Get back at Vader by killing his kid, which he didn't even know about. So I don't know how she could get back at him for that. I guess she'd brag to him later. Hey, by the way, you killed all those kids in the temple. Did I mention to you that you had a kid? Well, not anymore.
Yeah, good luck with that conversation.
I was wondering where we were going with this when she saw that recording and Senator Organa talking about keeping the children safe, and what would she do with that? And it was pretty clear within the episode that she just wanted to get back at Vader, an eye for an eye, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get back to Vader versus Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan gets out of this predicament. He storms back. And versus, I guess, Reva, where he was kind of able to just force stop Reva exactly where she was and kind of toy with her. He kind of has to save himself at the last second by blocking Obi-Wan. But did this take an emotional toll on anybody else?
Oh yeah, they set up the lore and the lines from A New Hope and everything off pretty well. Like Obi-Wan's been struggling with the idea that he's the one that made Anakin this and ended the guy that used to be his friend, his brother, and everything. And Vader basically saying, you know what? I did that. It wasn't anything you did. So now Obi-Wan has that in his head. Oh, Anakin's dead, and Vader's the one who really killed him. And speaking of rhyming, the echoing of Luke's line in Episode 6, "Then my father is truly dead." Now it's Obi-Wan saying, "My friend is truly dead."
The poetry continues with Mezzo. They continue to fight. How about the scene when Obi-Wan is just making it rain rocks on Vader? Now, you been talking about some ponage.
And that force power, too. Like, this man couldn't even move a pencil a couple weeks ago, and now he's throwing rocks like crazy at Vader. But it was interesting to see, like, Vader, the difference, right, of the sides of the force. Vader was ready to just bury that man alive, and Obi-Wan obviously had the same amount of power. He could have done the same thing, but instead of, dumping it and burying him and leaving him there, he just kind of threw a bunch of medium-sized rocks to take him down himself afterwards. So I thought that was interesting too, to see they both used basically the same power and had the same technique, same idea. And that's amazing.
It all goes back to lifting rocks.
There is so much that has been said. There is so much, that's not how the Force works. There's just so much at this point that it's so easy. It's all layups to just do amazing things and play on, Yeah, it's just insane. But yeah, just loved it.
That's awesome.
Again, it was so
That's great.
casual too. Like that was the great thing. Like he wasn't like going nuts,
No.
like when the Emperor is like throwing the things at Yoda in the Senate chamber.
Yeah.
Let's remember the way Luke described the Force is really correct. It's just, I mean, lifting rocks is a skill. It's not the Force. It's just something you can do with the Force.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes in handy more often than we think. What about Obi-Wan going straight for the life support? I mean, knowing that Vader is basically half machine now, and he just,
Did he give him the butt? Yeah, he was giving him the butt end of the lightsaber.
Yeah.
And then he cuts him down right on half of his mask. And I think it's the side of the head where, when we see Vader revealed in Episode 6, there's a scar like running down one side of his the top of his head. And I wonder if that I didn't quite see it. I don't know if that was a scar that was maybe came from. Did it come from the lava, or did it come from this? I didn't quite get to see the top of his head. Was it a fresh scar or not? But yeah.
A lot of speculation that is
that's awesome.
The way they're doing that. So yeah, the mark that you see on his head there was the one. Yeah, just an absolutely epic scene. And let's face it, they're just doing I don't want to discredit the live action series, but a lot of the successes they have are just doing things that we're seeing in the animated series. Whether it's the fight scenes being a little bit more elaborate, whether it's OPing these Jedi and these Force users so they can do it. And again, I don't want to fault them for it. Actually, you know what? We should applaud them for it, because if they weren't doing that, we'd be like, why wouldn't you be using what works and complaining because of that? So kudos to Disney and just, for taking what obviously works and applying it to the live action. I think that we saw a lot of things in this that we wanted to see.
One last little subtle touch they gave there at the end, where Obi-Wan's saying goodbye. He doesn't call him Anakin. He doesn't even call him Vader. He refers to him as Darth. The same way he was referring to him in Episode 4.
It's the final round. Exactly why I wouldn't be coming back calling him Anakin, for sure. And I also saw a meme
he when he put respect on Vader's name. He just calls him Darth. You're just a Darth.
Yeah, I also saw a meme when oh wow, that does actually piss him off. I saw a meme when where he was like, you didn't kill Anakin like I did. And he's like, can I get that in writing? Or whatever, yeah. But so at that point, obviously, again, so this is the thing, right? They took us on an adventure where we knew where the pieces were going to eventually. This is about sticking a landing. It's kind of like a gymnast on the bar or whatever, the places had to be in a certain spot by the way it happened. So yeah, it was kind of unfathomable that they wouldn't have this interaction, another fight. We were talking a week ago whether they would. It was basically minus 500 that they would as far as odds wise. But yeah, we see an amazing battle where Obi-Wan does get the best of him and he walks away. Kind of in a melancholy, basically similar to him walking away at Mustafar. As said, obviously, I think I don't think he has any regret from that interaction as much as he does the first one. So it kind of takes us on a full ride there, and then it kind of wraps back to where we see Reva chasing after Luke after she kind of finally wears down Uncle Lars and Aunt Beru, but ultimately decides not to pull the trigger on that, and we're into the falling action there where we kind of get a lot of tear jerkers and everything like that. What did you think of Reva's arc as that came to a close with the final Kenobi interaction there?
Man, I mean, I didn't expect her to be so forthcoming with Obi-Wan even at the end. I mean, there was still that was her whole purpose at this beginning of the show, was hunting Obi-Wan, and whether that was obviously to maybe just impress Darth Vader or for her own reasonings. But yeah, the character arc of her and the shots, it was kind of creepy, the little shots when she was looking at Luke and it was showing her and then flipping back and forth and everything. I honestly thought for a little bit my TV was going crazy. There were certain times in the show that I thought my TV was going crazy in this, and that was one of them.
It's crazy they didn't do a warning, because that was basically what they showed last week. They didn't do as much of a warning before the episode this week, did they?
I don't know if there was one or not, but
I think there was only one before episode 1 when we saw Order 66 and younglings and peril and whatnot, and then the flashbacks, of course, in the last.
And again,
episode.
this is another example where I think we got to thank Chow for giving us his original story. Obviously, I think sticking with what works. The Inquisitors were great in the animated series, great implementation. I think and I think even the Grand Inquisitor is kind of sick of Vader's bullshit. It's just kind of funny. It was kind of funny. Like, if you looked at him when Vader said he was going after him, he's like, what the fuck?
The Inquisitor knows that the rebels are the true threat.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. But yeah, so we get the falling action there. We get Reva not pulling trigger. So do you think there's potential for her in a spin-off? Because obviously, I think there's no doubt that O'Shea Jackson Jr. will either be in Ahsoka or Andor for sure. But
I'm not sure where Reva would fit in. First, she's got to go off on her own and kind of find out what she is now. I almost would have had Obi-Wan advise her, hey, don't lose the lightsaber, just get a new kyber crystal. Red or green might look good on you. But I mean, Reva, I don't know if she's going to fit into the future of Star Wars from that part going on through the timeline. I would have thought she would have been a goner by the end of the series, or a sacrifice or something.
I think there's a lot of Ahsoka stuff that is going to tie into this, whether that's with Reva or anything else. So I think that's a natural spot. Or if this Obi-Wan, I mean, they're still talking about this, second season about this. They want to do another part of this story, whatever else. And maybe that's what she kind of fits into.
I really started thinking about it as they went down. They don't have to bring back a lot of the same characters. They can make it a whole new adventure and make it about Obi-Wan, get a couple of scenes with Qui-Gon and I guess
that was a really nice touch in that scene where they're talking to each other as well, because there's the Anakin I think is talking for the second there. It's blue on his face, and a little bit when they're talking as they're back and forth, they have the blue light shining on him. Then they switch to Obi-Wan and the blue is much more vibrant on his face, and then when it goes back to Vader, it's just straight red when he makes that line about you didn't kill him, I killed him, or whatever. So it was and that's they did that in
Rebels,
Force Awakens as well, when Han Solo, there's Force Awakens, right? Whichever one where
Episode
Kylo
7?
Yeah,
that same lighting happens with Kylo. Is it's blue on his face while he's sitting there talking to Han, and then it turns red as he decides to kill him. So it's just a nice little touch of just cinematography and everything, showing us where their mindsets are at. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, no, it was really well done.
I think in Force Awakens it's actually split the whole time, and you're like, oh man, like what's going on here? And then it goes and it just turns red, and you're like, oh shit.
And Vader, and if I recall, Vader's kind of like when he starts talking, it is kind of a light red, and he kind of lifts up the saber and it intensifies his talks. By the way, okay, where is it? Whoever the hell thought of the idea for the voice box to be broken and to have Hayden's voice on the half and James Earl Jones.
That's beautiful.
Hearing Hayden and James Earl Jones back and forth mixed or whatever, that's the bridge we get from Hayden to the James Earl Jones Darth Vader
That
era.
was incredible. That really made that scene. So I got to give that up.
We got a little bit of that in Rebels, in that one, for those of you who haven't seen it, spoilers, the fight scene with Ahsoka where you're hearing Vader, and then she kind of, it's similar to this scene. Some of his mask gets torn off, and you hear not Hayden Christensen, who's the guy that voiced Anakin for the Clone Wars, or
I know it's a different guy. I forget his name.
Yeah, but then you hear him too, very subtly in that raspy voice box generated thing or whatever. So they mirrored that with this scene and Obi-Wan Kenobi, except now they have Hayden on there.
Absolutely, sir.
And going back to the Reva's attack on Luke, Nice little subtle thing that they sheltered Luke before she got there and basically told him, oh, it's Tusken Raiders sand people or whatever. So he didn't know what was really going on. And as he's running away from whoever this is, he doesn't get a good look at her lightsaber. So he doesn't know what a lightsaber is and hasn't gotten a good look at one yet. He's knocked out by the time she's about to, trying to decide whether to do it or not.
Yep, they had to do something to where he wouldn't be familiar with this. He wouldn't have a memory of something so outrageous. Speaking of a young one, it's a good little interaction and falling action here.
This was my tearjerker moment.
Yeah, there were about three to four specific things in the last 10 minutes where it was like, wow, like I'm really getting old on Star Wars.
Yeah, this is the one where I was like, man, this is just knowing what that girl's about to go through for the next, however long, and yeah, that was it right there. Oh.
Very well
it just hurts seeing them on the thing.
All the feels.
Yeah, a lot of feels. And hey, again, so I think this is a very fair take. Yes, so you get this. And now I'm just realizing she grows up and names her son Ben.
Yep.
I'm clueless.
Well, we thought they named him Ben after, Luke's relationship with Ben Kenobi. But now we find out she had just as much of a relationship, at least at a younger age, with him as well, and knew him as Ben.
Yes. So,
well, and that was the nice part about that conversation too. Like, if you ever need help to call a tired old man, like that whole little part and everything, I was just like, man, like I'm just picturing it in my head, just watching A New Hope over again, and it's just all putting together. Yeah, that was beautifully done. Leia was the best part of this series for me. Our first episode was like, damn, had no idea this girl was even going to be in this show, had no idea this was going to be a part of it, and then she turned into the biggest treat of it. So I do hope we get to see more somehow of her going forward too.
Speaking of treats, does anyone want to talk a Federation trade treaty? Who wants some episode 1 cameos?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've seen Emperor Palpatine here and there voiced or, doing cameos before, but Liam Neeson, is it literally been over 20 years?
He looks exactly the same.
Sassy Qui-Gon, so again, too.
Super sassy Qui-Gon. Took you long enough.
Oh man, yeah, this was a treat. We've been waiting for it literally all series to see him. I was hoping we'd get a little bit of a more thing, but maybe that's just the taste for going forward. Who knows?
I'm telling you sprinkle in Obi-Wan having like a side adventure with like the rebellion as it's developing, Qui-Gon scene here or there. You show a new like villain on like, the Empire side. I mean, again, where is it? We saw somebody from inside the Empire trying to attack Vader. That was cool. If you had told us when the series started that we'd be seeing that, I think we would have been like, wow, that's incredible. So again, we got I gotta give it when it's due. I feel like there was a lot of criticism of the show. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, but I feel like the show really delivered for Obi-Wan. And by the way, we haven't even mentioned it. The ultimate callback. Did you guys see it coming when he walked up to Luke?
I should have.
I did for about a half a second. I got a half a second there when it started to zoom in on him, and I literally laughed for the next like 30 seconds.
I mean, what other line could it have been?
And they waited too. Like he walked up and he was walking up awkwardly. I'm like, what is he? Like, is he gonna say something to this kid? Like, it's just this weird old man walking up to this kid. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I get it.
It's like a totally perfect thing to say to a kid too that you don't know. Yes, but tremendous. Yep, go ahead, Parthi.
I want to go back to that Vader Emperor scene where Palpatine's basically telling him, look, we got things to do. You got to get over Vader now. You got to just put this in your past and stop with the tunnel vision and whatnot.
You know what? I realize that it's a win-win. It's a win-win for both Vader and I stole this from a Twitter comment, so I don't want to think it was all mine. But one, he letting go of his obsession of Obi-Wan. It's the only thing that's connecting Anakin still. This gets him closer to full Vader, obviously. And two, knowing Vader's still out there, or knowing Obi-Wan's still out there, he knows that pisses off Vader. He knows that makes him upset, and that's exactly what the Emperor wants to do. He wants to keep Vader pissy, he wants to keep him angry, and he wants him channeling that hate.
That's true.
I was saying in our earlier shows, I was almost under the impression that their final battle, that we knew that we're going to get in this last episode, was going to end in a draw somehow, and Vader might be under the impression that he didn't know what would end up happening to Obi-Wan, because I keep going back to that scene in Rebels where Vader contacts the Emperor, and they're talking about, oh, I found Ahsoka, Anakin's apprentice.
You love this scene.
Yeah.
This is what you've been all about.
And, Palpatine saying this could lead us to other lost Jedi, and Vader quips, like Kenobi. And Palpatine says, perhaps if he lives. So maybe they're just guessing. I mean, are they really guessing that he might have dropped dead at old age by that point? I mean, we got Tarkin in episode 4 saying, surely he must be dead by now. Is everybody on the impression that Obi-Wan is just going to die of old age? He's not that old. I mean, he's gray by the time we get to episode 4 with Alec Guinness and all, but he's not, that weak.
And we know from the Grand Inquisitor an episode ago, don't underestimate, revenge as something for the power to live, even though, it's not the Jedi way. That's what Obi-Wan's after, obviously. Well, hey, we got any other guys? Any other thoughts, boys, on Kenobi? Just wrapping up for the series.
I think.
What would you rate it overall out of 10?
7.5.
Okay, solid. What would you rate Book of Boba Fett for reference?
Book of Boba Fett, probably like 7. Okay. I enjoyed Kenobi more, but Mando is still.
Mando's in the 8. Mando's definitely not below an 8 for sure.
Mando's a level above.
Yeah.
I would give Boba Fett maybe 7 out of 10 sounds about right. For this, I'd give Obi-Wan Kenobi series about an 8.5 out of 10.
There we go.
The only thing keeping me from like a mid-8s is just that there were so many ridiculous scenes sprinkled in, like the Leia running away scene in the first episode. That did take you out of it a little bit. I did love everything with the storytelling, so I'm going to give it a flat 8 out of 10 for me.
That's all.
A little bit better than Boba Fett. You know what though? I'm going to give them more credit on this because, like I said when I was ranting like an idiot, about how they have to get everything into a spot for episode 4 or how it happens in the future trilogy. There were a little bit more of a restriction on what they were able to do with the characters and what was happening in this series. Where in Book of Boba Fett, it was kind of like all bets are off. They could have done anything, regardless of what they want to do. So I give them a little bit more credit. And obviously, one last time. D-Chow, getting it done.
What are the odds, do you guys think, that either in a new Obi-Wan series or in the Ahsoka series that those two are going to cross paths again? Because I feel like that's Obi-Wan and Ahsoka.
Ooh.
That was my thinking at the end of Obi-Wan is that is the next journey, is to try to find Ahsoka. And
the thing is, right now, I'm telling you, Ian McGregor or Reva in my mind are like big time season 2, season 3, season 4 Ahsoka potential. They arrive at the end of an episode and it's like huge or something, or like something like that. Like that would be my thinking for when we'll see either one of them.
It just feels like they've tied in so much of like that Clone Wars lore and that Rebels lore and everything else that to not have it an on-screen live action interaction between Ahsoka and Obi-Wan at this point would be doing a disservice to all of us, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
it would have to be in an Obi-Wan season 2 because the Ahsoka series is going to be set after Return of the Jedi, right?
Yeah,
in the Mandalorian timeline.
So I think it is, but I also think that there's going to be I thought that I saw that before there was going to be flashbacks as well, but maybe.
Hayden Christensen's going to be in there too. Yeah,
that's right.
You're right.
So that's what I was thinking as well.
I know we were making a joke of it, but great use with the voice again with him and James Earl Jones alternating when the box were great use for Aiden. Definitely sounded just like Anakin was pulling at the heartstrings. Anakin of 15 years ago, obviously I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Obi-Wan is in the books. The next series we'll have out of Disney Plus for Star Wars is Andor, I think in August.
Yes,
which sounded so far away when it was Star Wars Celebration, 7 weeks ago or whatever. But now it seems like it's very close. So I'm going to be excited about that. We've talked about Mrs. Marvel. Obviously I haven't seen that. Miss Marvel, have not seen that. I've not seen any of Moon Knight. I don't want to, hold that against myself because I know we consider ourselves streamers. But yeah,
it's a lot. there's
I gotta get
and
like I was saying in the pre-show, I gotta get tonight or next couple nights into Multiverse of Madness to watch that again. So we'll see what's going on there. What are you guys targeting next for watching? Anything specific, or are you taking a little break?
Well, Mir and I were talking about finishing up maybe on here with the boys the last couple episodes because I'm officially caught up to the boys. And
everyone's telling me the best show on TV right now.
It's the best show on TV. I'm a superhero nerd, so it might be one of my favorite shows ever at this point. But it's just incredible, that show. But Stranger Things as well. I mean, we got Stranger Things I haven't started Stranger Things yet. Season 4, I should say. So trying to get caught up on that before. Well, we got next week. I probably won't get caught up before next week. But part 2 coming out next week. So those are next up on the docket, I think.
So I know what The Boys is all about. I hear all about it. Is Homelander more despisable than, say, Joffrey?
Homelander is definitely, that is a great, wow, that's a hard one because
Joffrey was so good.
I'm also rewatching Game of Thrones with my girlfriend. My girlfriend's watching Game of Thrones for the first time, and she's like, so does Joffrey have any redeemable qualities last night? And I was like, no, literally zero. There's not a single thing. Homelander, yeah, I'll give it to Homelander. Just because, superpowers and the way he uses them. Probably
there is that one scene that I know of, the plane crash. I mean, yeah, that's like the first
despicable thing that you see from him, and you're like, man, like, I don't know. But see, even in that moment, I was talking about this yesterday. Like that moment, even then, I kind of thought it was like, yeah, this guy's like a horrible human or superhero, whatever. But also, it was also a very stressful situation. They didn't have a lot of options, and maybe he was just like tweaked and just made the wrong decision. Like I kind of thought it was going to be like at that point, kind of a bad guy, but maybe just in over his head. And he is in over his head, but he's just a horrible guy.
Maybe he just needs to join another series, like Cody Rhodes make the jump to WWE or something. I don't know. For me, I keep hearing good things about Ms. Marvel. I was telling you guys before the show started. I gotta get started on that. I'm looking forward to Ahsoka and The Mandalorian Season 3, but they're more distant on the horizon. I'm curious to see what they'll do with Andor because it's much more of a clean slate than all these other series that we've seen that, like you said, Maniac, they have to fit it more into the lore.
The Andor trailer was fucking lit. That's all I'm going to say right now. Oh my God, go fire that bad boy up. I'll tell you what, I guarantee you'll be fired up for Andor.
The next big thing we really have on the docket is not a show, it's Thor Love and Thunder. Which,
okay.
It's huge on the docket. And something that's my friend brought up to me the other day is that in 2 of the Thor after credit scenes, in the original movie and the third movie, both led to wars directly after. The first one was the attack on New York, and everything else starting after that. And then the end of Ragnarok is obviously Thanos showing up and doing that. So I'm just keeping that in mind for our Thor Love and Thunder as we start getting all these Phase 4 ending talks coming through, and Kevin Feige saying that we're going to start learning more about the new phase coming up and all these secret wars rumors that have been going on for years. I'm just wondering what Thor is going to have for us at the end, even though I'm excited about the whole ride of that movie because it looks amazing.
Great point by you, because Phase 4 has been a little bit light in the front loaded as far as overall concepts, despite literally the timeline splintering open and all kinds of stuff happening that's way more severe than anything in 1, 2, and 3. So very much looking forward to that. And of course, I mean, we know we have Chekhov's Kang still on his way in Quantumania, but yes, cannot look ahead of myself. 2 weeks, till Love and Thunder?
2 weeks, yep.
By the way, shout out to my boy Thor. He's always been my favorite Avenger. People hated his first 2 movies relative to everybody else's, but what did he do? He was the first one to have 4 movies. So in your face, haters.
Turned up.
Thor.
Our Thor. Speaking of making sure our boys turn up, make sure you're following at Michael Parthum on Twitter, as well as at yourfriend_Jake. Make sure you're paneling our panel for all of that entertainment. We'll keep it rolling. Of course, we'll also be back this weekend with Forbidden Door previews in some form for AEW, as that special will be rocking and rolling this weekend. So much going on. And of course, I mean, we're talking entertainment. Make sure you're following our guy, Megabyte Ronnie. His road to Coney Island continues this weekend at a qualifier, so we'll see if he can make it. It is time to eat, because it's not about last week's article. It's not about next week's podcast. It's about next week's episode.